Hey all, welcome back to Woodside Art Classes. I'm Mr. Dennis, your instructor for the day. Today we are going to be talking about one-point perspective and how to start that off from the basic level and work your way up to more and more complicated things. It is difficult to jump in and do perspective really well, jump into rooms and cities and all those kinds of things. And I have a belief that you should know the basics and then work your way up to those things so you can do it more independently. I'm not a big fan of monkey see, monkey do. And there's a lot of instruction out there where you just do what you see the teacher do, and in the end, you don't really understand how to do things independently on your own. So we're going to do more instruction like that. In this video, or in this series of videos, we are going to be doing 6 basic levels of one-point perspective. We're going to start off with basic boxes, and then we're going to start to turn that into a sequence of boxes. Then we're going to start to add intrusions, which are holes through those shapes. We're going to also add extrusions, which are parts that come out of that shape and towards you. And then finally, we're going to end with complex geometric shapes that are random shapes and complex organic shapes as our 6 levels. Those 6 levels, if you learn those really well and you understand them thoroughly, are going to give you a much better base to start to do things independently when you want to. And then you're able to move on to doing things like rooms, cityscapes, all those other things. So let's get started. Welcome to our instructional video on how to do one-point perspective, the beginning levels. In this video, we're going to cover the first 2 levels of one-point perspective. Those being basic boxes and a sequence of boxes, and then we're going to build off that in future videos. So today we're just going to cover those first 2. With any kind of one-point perspective, I'm going to need a vanishing point. Vanishing point is going to go someplace in the middle. That is where everything is going to gradually go off into the distance and vanish, okay? I'm going to also go ahead and draw a horizon line. For this, you can use a ruler or you can use a triangle. I'm going to use the triangle today because you can see through it, so you can kind of see the other things that I'm doing. So I'm going to use that today, but you can use a regular ruler. Any kind of straight edge will work. So that vanishing point is really important. We also have some things that we need to understand as far as rules. All of the lines that we're going to be drawing initially are going to either be horizontal, which is side to side, vertical, which is up and down. They're going to be orthogonal, which are lines that go at an angle back to the vanishing point. So the angle changes. Orthogonal kind of sounds like the word diagonal, and they are similar. So they're diagonal lines that converge to the vanishing point. And then last, we're going to do some rules that are parallel. Parallel lines are lines that run parallel, and if they kept on going, they would never intersect. So they stay parallel completely. Okay? Those are also going to be known as the rule of cutoffs, because when we make a box, we have to cut the back side of it off. Okay? So I'm going to start by just drawing a basic square or rectangle. I'm not going to draw it super big. I'm going to go ahead and use my triangle here instead of a ruler. So I've got my first 2 verticals and my first 2 horizontals. Those are the first 2 rules. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick which corners I need to make orthogonals go back to that vanishing point, which is going to start to make it go off in the distance. Okay? I'm going to draw these lines really light. In order to do that, I'm going to hold my pencil very lightly, and I'm going to not grip it tight, and I'm not going to hold it way up by the tip. I'm going to actually hold it farther back. So this one right here, I need to make a decision. Do I need to draw that line back to the vanishing point or not? In this case, that is a yes. So I'm going to lightly draw that line back to my vanishing point. This one right here, this one is a yes. I'm going to line up my corner to my vanishing point, and I'm going to gently and lightly draw that back. I'll come back and darken the lines that I'm going to keep as we go on. Again, I'm going to go from this corner, line up my ruler or my triangle, and go back to my vanishing point. This corner over here, I wouldn't be able to see unless this was made out of glass, and then it would go behind it, okay? So I've done now the first 3 rules. I've done some verticals, some horizontals, and some orthogonals. Now I need to cut this box off and make it so it has an ending, so it doesn't just go off into the distance forever and ever and ever. Okay? Now to do that, this is one of the reasons that I like to use these triangles, is because I can line it up with the edge of my paper and make sure that I stay parallel. It is a rule of parallel lines or cutoffs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to decide how deep this box is. I'm going to start right here and I'm going to slide out, and then I'm going to cut that part off. So I'm running parallel to this one. That would be that line right there. I also need to run parallel to this horizontal line. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, run my ruler right there, slide on up, make sure that's parallel. The common mistake is to let this start to lean, to let it angle. If I draw that line, that's definitely not parallel to that. So I need to come back and make sure that it's parallel, make sure it matches with this one. And then when I draw that right there, I now can go ahead and harden up these lines that I drew, these orthogonals that I'm going to keep. And then I can start to erase the lines after that. I'm not going to erase them all the way because we are making this kind of a two first steps instructional. So I've got my basic box. This is the first level of doing any of this, is basic box. Okay, so now that we have our basic box, we are going to move on to the second level of learning one-point perspective. We're going to take this basic box and the orthogonal lines that we created, and we are going to make a sequence of boxes that go farther back and farther back, which will make the boxes look smaller, but in reality they would be the same size, just farther away. That is one of the key things that perspective allows us to show, is depth and distance. So my next step is I'm going to go ahead and create another horizontal and another vertical line, which is going to be the beginning of the next box back. Now I'm going to go ahead and put my triangle or my ruler right on the edge of this, slide it back, make sure that I don't angle it, because that is the most common mistake. I want to keep it nice and straight. I can always kind of check my horizon line. If my ruler is not parallel to that and it's angled, I'm way off. I can also check it compared to the edge of my paper, either horizontally or vertically. I can check it compared to that always. If it's not parallel to those, it is not vertical or horizontal. Okay, so these two lines right here represent these two lines, the beginning of the front of the next box. Now the front of this box is mostly covered by this first box. So when I add these two lines right here, which again are parallel to the other lines, if I could see it, there would be the rest of the box behind it right here. If this one was made out of glass, I would be able to see the next one back. So this becomes the front of the next box. I'm going to have to go through the same thing that I did on this one, just the next one back. So I'm going to make sure that it's parallel, not twist it, and go ahead and draw another vertical line and another horizontal line. I'm going to go back over my orthogonal lines, firm those up, darken them a little bit, parts that I'm going to keep, and that creates the second box back. Now this box back here again is the same size as the first box, it's just farther away, and so it needs to be smaller in the space to make it create that illusion of depth. So next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and erase a little bit of my orthogonal lines that are left light in the first place, and start to create the next box back. Now for your assignment, you can make as many boxes as you want. I've had students make 10 boxes back and they get teeny tiny ones back here. For this, I'm just asking that you do at least 3 that are done correctly. So once again, I'm going to do a vertical line. I'm not letting it angle. And I'm going to do a horizontal line, connecting to my existing orthogonals that I already had. And I'm going to go ahead and finish off the front of that box like that. So as we can imagine, this is the front of this box, this is the front of this box, and this is the front of this box. They're just covered up by each other. So for this last one, I'm going to go ahead and slide on back, draw my last vertical line and my last horizontal line. I keep checking it. I don't angle. And I'm going to firm up these lines that I'm keeping. Now, if I was walking around in this space, and say these were like shipping containers or giant presents from Santa Claus or whatever, I could go ahead and walk in here and walk through this space, come out the other side of this space, and walk back through here and come out through here. Think of these as kind of spaces in between the boxes. This is creating that depth. I could turn these into buildings, houses, a series of train cars behind a locomotive, anything like that. Are things that I could start to do. And that's why we start this way, is later on we can start to use our imaginations to make these into anything that we want. So, this is our sequence. We're going to label it that way. And in the next video, we will move on to the next 2 levels. So join me there. Thanks.